I don't want to disrespect these people, but if you're signing up to these people that are on the street, basically with a table with a little banner that's been taped to it that is half of the time flying off, and they've got these things that we're supposed to hand to them, like the little pamphlets, and they're absolutely ripped to shreds. They're disgusting. If you're going to trust that and give your money to that,
Yeah.
they're obviously not the smartest.
Molly, you worked for a few different companies in the UK, and when you first messaged us, you said, and this is a direct quote from your message, you said that I went in for the interview and quote unquote observation day and knew something was off, but being so desperate for money, I was thrilled when I got the position. So that tells me you had some reservations at first. Can you tell me some of the things you felt just on the first day you noticed were kind of strange?
I think probably the first thing was when I went into the office. I don't know, just I just get like a really weird gut feeling, just like something's a bit off here. Um, and then I went outside because what we did, so we'd all meet up in the morning, come out of atmosphere, and after we found out where we were going, we'd all kind of stand outside, wait for everyone to come out of like leaders meetings, so we could all go off on the train.
Hmm.
Um, and on my observation day, we were like at that stage, we're all just stood outside. And I was talking to my leader, and she was saying, "Oh, we're going to Grimsby," which compared to Doncaster, where I was living, so I'd gone from Doncaster to Sheffield for the interview, which was like a 20-minute, half an hour train ride. Um, I was then going to Grimsby, which is like a further hour, an hour and a half, which then cost me £30 out of my own pocket, which really I didn't have. And I was told by my leader, well, if you get the position, I'll give you the money back for it,
Hmm.
which, by the way, I never got. So that was like my first reservation. It's just like, why do we have to go so far to, do some work?
Yeah.
And then actually on the train ride there, my leader said to me, like, if at any point you say like this isn't for you, or you just think like you don't want to do this, just saying you can leave.
Hmm.
And I've never had an interview where they're basically trying to say to you like, leave.
Hmm. Okay.
And then we got there, and it was myself. So there's three people there that were doing the event, all three of which were leaders. And there was four observations. So two of them left by about midday, and then there was a third one. No, sorry, it's just the second one. Myself and the second one that ended up staying for the entire day. And throughout the entire day, I was just saying to myself, like, I want to go. Like, I do not want to do this. I was looking at what they were doing. It's like, I can't do this. Like, I felt even at the start, this is so manipulative. You're like playing on people's emotions to get money.
Hmm.
But I was so desperate for work. I was just like, what am I going to be able to tell everyone when I come home and say, actually, I just walked away from the interview?
Right. So the reason we get a lot of messages from a lot of people, and the reason I really wanted to talk to you was because you talked about an aspect of this business that I've never heard of before, and that I don't think a lot of people, if they haven't seen the slave circle or worked it, they don't know this is happening anyway in like the stores and door-to-door stuff. But this is
Yeah.
entirely different. So first, do you know if the companies you worked for, what umbrella they were under? Do you know if they were like Sidcor, Credico, Smart Circle? Did they ever mention like a parent
It was
operation?
Credico.
It was Credico. Okay, so we do have a name. This was a Credico company.
Yeah.
So what you did was you went out just in public streets representing charities, and you were trying to
Hmm.
get charitable donations.
Yes.
So first, what were some of do you remember some of the charities that you were representing? Were these legit charities?
They were actually legit charities. So I worked with three.
Okay.
We worked with the National Deaf Children's Society. We worked with Childlife, which is a bit under the radar, but it's actually like four children's charities in one. And we also worked with the NSPCC, which is a massive charity. However, we didn't work with these charities directly, if that makes sense. These companies that we worked for were outsourcers.
Hmm.
So our client was the Personal Fundraising Services. And these charities were working with the Personal Fundraising Services, and then the Personal Fundraising Services were working with us.
Hmm.
So we didn't work directly with the charities, but we were the ones that were getting them the money. But we were like the third man.
Yeah. Why, if these charities are already working with personal fundraising services, why would they need you?
I think it's because the personal fundraising services are, so they were our clients, if that makes sense. So these charities approach PFS, that's what we call it. So these charities approach PFS and say, this is our budget for advertising this year. You take it and do what you want with it, and basically bring it us back. And then that money was then sent to us to give us the chance to do all these events, if that makes sense. So
Okay.
personal fundraising services didn't do those events themselves. They hired us to do those events.
So basically, you were hired on as advertisers in a way.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you were so how did they make the decision of like where to go? Because like you said on the streets, you could pretty much go anywhere. Were there specific areas that were targeted for specific reasons?
I'm not too sure, in all honesty. I know that we booked events because I talked with the CEO a couple of times about it, but I just don't know how they did it. Like, especially you'll see like when you get a chance to read through the messages I sent, a lot of people are joining in saying like, well, we booked this event or they've cancelled. So I'm assuming we have to talk with like the local councils,
Okay.
and then, you know, book an area in which it's safe and legal for us to promote.
Right.
I'm assuming that's roughly what it was. But there's some areas we went to, because basically we had a goal to like stop 100 people, and there's some areas where when you've got 4 people on one stand and there's like 3 people passing an hour, it's impossible for us to stop 100 people.
Right.
And then we just kept getting told by our leaders, when I said like, look, there's not enough people, can we at least like move up the street or something to where there's a few more people? I just told, well, Matt wouldn't book out these events if he didn't think there was enough people for us.
And you sent me a photo of one of your quote unquote events, which it literally looks like a blue garbage can. You said it's a sign put on a table. It's one of the shadiest things I've ever seen. If I were to walk past these guys, as well dressed as they may be, even though they're standing in front of what looks like a construction site, and they're asking me for money, I don't care who you're asking me for money for, especially if it's a direct debit. No, I'm not giving you my card information. Are you kidding? But we'll get into the manipulation involved because I've had a chance to read through the pitch, and there's quite a bit of manipulation in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys were out on the streets representing charities. So this isn't anything that anybody has to buy. This isn't anything like a service like energy or cable or television that anyone has to sign up for. The idea is that this money is going to a good cause. And you continued that the clients, which I'm guessing are the PFSs that represent these other groups, wanted monthly donations, not one-off fees. So if I just had like a couple bucks in my pocket, no, we need your card number so we can draw this monthly. And we had to ensure that the people we stopped and sold to would continue to pay, as if it got canceled within a certain time frame, the commission would be taken off our pay and we would lose our quality score. So there's a lot to unpack there. So first of all, I'm curious about yourself, because you mentioned earlier that in your observation day, a couple people left right away. Was there ever any thought in your mind, I'm asking people for charitable donations, but this is somehow a job. I'm making money off this. Was there ever like a question of like, number one, how am I going to get paid? Number two, is this ethically correct? And like, did anything like that ever enter your mind?
100%. The first thing I questioned, so you know when the leaders take you off, you know, the business breakdown. When I got taken off for that, I was like, so how am I going to get paid? She's like, well, you get paid weekly into your bank account. Everything's cool. Everything's fine. And I was like, okay. So I didn't really realize until further on into actually doing it how we got paid, because we had to describe it to our customers when they were like, if they'd say, ask a question, it's like, well, I don't want to sign up because I know you're going to make money from it. Because part of our pitch is that we are professionally paid fundraisers, but we're paid from a pre-allocated budget. So that's only how I learned about it. But then when I was thinking about it, it was £28 for an average sale that we'd get. So say like a 35-year-old came up to us and signed up for £10 a month, we'd get about £28 for that. But if they only stayed for, say, 6 months, they would not make that much back as to how much we've been paid, if that makes sense, because we would get quality on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So after they've stayed, I think it's for, so basically they get a call back 3 weeks after we've stopped them and they've signed up to say you're still happy to go ahead with your direct debit. And if they say yes, then we get a tiny little quality bonus on top of that. And then I think it's as the months go on, then we get paid extra and extra. And if they're still there 5 years on, then we're still getting paid for that one sale we did. So I don't know how they're making money, in all honesty. It completely baffles me. But in regards to the kind of moral side of it, I just had to put it like away, because I was, like I said before, I was so desperate for work that every time I stopped someone, I was just like, this person probably could do without this extra thing you're donating to whatever I was trying to sell them, you know what I mean? And I just had to put it to one side. I just needed the money, and I just wanted to do something with my life and be successful. And I was just trying to put all my morals away and just think, screw it.
That is something I hear so often. I feel like so many of the people I talk to say the word desperate. I've had other people I've interviewed use that exact word to describe people in this business. They're desperate. They're willing to pretty much do anything they can to make money at the expense of others. And we could get into reasons of how we even get to that position, but that would take a whole day's worth of conversation. One of the images that I have, anyone who's been in this business is familiar with the bullet theory, where you basically shoot down the negatives. So if someone comes at you with a negative, how quickly can you overturn that negative into a positive? One of the bullets on your campaign was called the direct debit phobia. And one of the things you were taught to say was, 100% of everything you give goes to charity, which is obviously a blatant lie, right? Because you have to get paid in some way. You can tell them that it's pre-allocated, but it's not pre-allocated. Like, you're getting a cut, and Credico is getting a cut because it works like a pyramid of every dollar amount that comes in. Did you have a lot of pushback on that from people on the streets?
In all honesty, I didn't get a lot, because I think it was like just before I got promoted to be a leader that they started teaching us bullet theory. Because basically my leader's leader, he made it sound like it was some kind of elite thing that only the best get to learn, because we're the best team ever. So we didn't learn that till quite late on, and I started using it. But most of the time, the people that were signing up, I don't want to disrespect these people, but if you're signing up to these people that are on the street, basically with a table with a little banner that's been taped to it that is half of the time flying off, and they've got these things that we're supposed to hand to them, like the little pamphlets, and they're absolutely ripped to shreds. They're disgusting. If you're going to trust that and give your money to that, I just, they're obviously not the smartest, and I don't want to say that like in a nasty way. They're obviously like quite gullible, vulnerable. So the second I said direct debit is the safest way for you to give your money to the charity and it's the best way to support them, they'd be like that. They'd just snap it right up. So in all honesty, I didn't face a lot of comeback from that.
I mean, one of the themes of this business, doesn't matter if it's Smart Circle, Credico, Sidcor, UK, US, South Africa, wherever, is that the whole reason this business works is it preys on people. It preys on desperate people to get them into the business, and then it preys on the psychology of people to get them to buy products they don't need, to sign up for services that are going to raise their prices, and in this case to donate to charities that a lot of their money isn't even going to go to those charities. So you sent us the script, which I kind of was interested. You had to handwrite this whole thing, which kind of in itself is a manipulative tactic in a way. But it follows the 5 steps, and everything that we know about the pitch, This is just a different type of pitch. So I really just kind of want to go through this. So this is something I'm assuming you said you try to say hundreds of times a day, just like any
Yeah.
other pitch. And I'm just going to quickly go through this and highlight some of the manipulative tactics in here. So you approach, it says, "Hi, we're here raising awareness for NDCS. Have you heard of us before?" And then another part of when someone's at the table, you assume it. You're like, "I'm sure you've heard of us before," which means if you haven't, then you're on the outskirts and you should have heard of us
Assuming the
before.
yes.
I'm not sure you're aware, but there are 50,000 deaf children in the UK that we know of. The biggest problem we face is that when the kids reach school, 2/3 are being bullied and isolated just for being deaf. It's not about the kids being mean, they just don't understand. What we want to do to combat this is getting sign language on the national curriculum. Noble cause, for sure. So you're already pulling at the heartstrings of these individuals with a couple of those things. And then you assume, which I'm sure you can agree is an amazing cause, because if you don't, you're a piece of crap, basically, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it costs us 20 million pounds a year, but the good news is I'm not asking you for that. Little humor there. All we are doing is having a quick chat with everyone. And so far, everyone's been amazing. Again, if you're not, you're the outsider. We would love to help out. We understand that times are tough and everyone supports different charities. So what everyone has been, so we've got the Jones effect there. Everyone's been doing it. What they've been more than happy to do is keep us in the future with something as small as a couple of quid out of your week, which I know to you and me isn't much, but when it comes from everyone, it does make a world of difference. So not only are you really playing on the emotions of these individuals because of the charity itself, you're really singling out these people where, it might not seem like much. It's kind of like the charity advertisements here in the US where they do something like for 10 cents a day or $1 a day, something like that. It sounds
Yeah.
so minuscule, but when it's multiplied all these different times, it really makes a difference. How successful was this pitch at getting people to give you their money, essentially?
In all honesty, I couldn't give you like 100% like success rate on it purely because it got changed all the time because different like leaders, like they'd work with different people than those leaders and say, actually, this pitch was more effective today, so use this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this pitch we had to do it word for word, or else it wouldn't be challenging the law of averages.
Yeah.
Once you got a kind of person that was even mildly interested, the second you started saying about how much it's going to cost you and all these poor kids and how horrible it is for them, they just went like that. But then the second you brought up the tablet, because what they taught us is just like the second you close them and say like, of course you're going to help us out, aren't you? And then they'd be like, yeah. So you grab the tablet as quick as possible. It's like, it's only going to take 2 minutes, take all your information. And then you show them the tablets like, so you can either donate £10 or £15 a month. And like, well, you said it was a couple of quid out my week. It's like, yeah, but you pay monthly.
Mm.
So that's usually what turned people off. Like we'd get a lot of people to the tablet and then they'd say, well, actually £10 a month sounds a lot more than a couple of quid a week.
For sure. It's almost like a bait and switch in a way. You say one thing,
Yeah.
but then, wow. So you in your message to us, you even went so far as to call this a scam. You said the charity scams were a funny one. It's a lot more manipulative because it really pulled on people's emotions and honestly made me sick sometimes. So we've seen just in the pitch how it plays on emotions. At what point, or was there a point, aside from after you got out, when you realized that this was in fact more of a scam than really helping anybody?
I think there was a couple of points, especially there was a video I sent you of like messages I was sending to one of my friends. It was just before I ended up quitting. It was just before the last road trip we went on. And in there I basically started saying like I couldn't do it anymore because these charities as well, like I'd grown to like them over the time I'd worked for them. I started to actually respect the charities a bit more because I knew more about what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt just like I was trying to sell it for what reason? Like what impact, in the nicest way possible, what impact do deaf children have in my life? Yeah, I'd love to get sign language on the national curriculum, but it's not something that impacts me personally. So how can I sell it to someone when it's nothing? I've got a bit of disconnect in between, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And all the leaders were trying to tell us, well, you've got to connect to the charity, you've got to you know, even if you're not connected to it, you've just got to sell, 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 sell. And I was like, you only want me to sell, not to further me in my life. You only want me to sell so you can earn some money.
Yeah.
And I think that was a point where it kind of clicked, and I was like, no, like, you're earning too much off of me when I'm literally scraping by, and I'm so deep in my overdraft that I can't even afford to eat today.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that's where it really clicked.
And I did get a chance to look through some of your messages, and I remember that message where you talked about being so deep in your overdraft, and then there was a conversation between several of you about a road trip where it seems like, because you had mentioned you had to pay your own way, and like no one could afford anything. So being that situation, you have all these overdrafts in your bank, you have literally no money, and you have to keep paying your way in this business. Why did you stay? What was the draw?
In all honesty, I think it was just they managed to manipulate me. I am quite easily manipulated. I am quite a nice person. I don't want to be tooting my own horn, but like, I hate letting people down. That's my biggest thing. I hate letting people down. And you'll especially see in one of those messages that this guy Toby sent me. He was really roped in. So in all honesty, I don't hold anything personal against him, because he was probably more roped in than I was. And he said, like, you're going to be letting everyone down if you don't come. You're going to screw us all over. You're the last leader left on this trip. Like, you're really going to do us in. And the second he said that, I'm just like, I can't let everyone down. But luckily enough, that was the last road trip I did. I did leave halfway through it, because first day I got no sales. Second day I got like one. And third day I was just like, I can't do this. I've literally spent £200 to get here. I've paid for everyone else. No one's paid me back. And I'm literally living off like the last cigarette in my packet. That's what I'm having to eat tonight. And then I just like, I need to go home. So the day after, I phoned my nana and granddad and my nana, and I was just like, and they just sent me the money for a train.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about sales. Like, you made this many sales, when to all the people, I guess all the customers that you're interacting with, this is a charitable thing. This is not supposed to be sales driven. Did you ever, I know you said that you were working with the fundraising services. Did you ever get to meet or talk to anybody from the actual charities, or were you kind of shielded away from that?
There was one person that came in from NDCS, because that was probably our biggest charity that we did. And we technically worked with them twice, because Childlife that I was talking about, they are also part of that. So they're probably the biggest charity we worked with. And we had one representative come in, and it was essentially just to give us info on the charity. It wasn't, I don't think they knew, in all honesty, how extreme these things were that we did, and how we played on people's emotions. I think they were just there thinking that we were just there doing a genuinely good thing, like supporting this charity that they love so much.
Yeah. And that's something I really wonder too, is to what degree do these charities know about this stuff? And would they be okay with it? Like, because I know as charities, you have a small amount of money. You're not for profit, so you have to stretch dollars. But when you're hiring second and third parties at this point to get the message out, but it's associated with a company as sleazy as Credico and its sister companies, like, it might be convenient for a business to have these third-party people going out and selling stuff for cents on the dollar, but if you're a charitable organization, I would think you would want to represent yourself in the best light possible. So I wonder, to what degree do these places know that they're working with these companies that are as unethical as possible? Getting a little bit deeper into your message, you talked about several of the road trips. It seems like you were always on road trips. And you talked a little bit about the last one, about how you were pretty much broke, and you decided to leave at that point. Was it a specifically manipulative tactic, you think, to just keep you guys on the road at all times?
In a way, I think it was, because I really enjoyed the road trips, especially my leader as well. She she studied like travel and tourism and all that in
Mhm.
university. So obviously she loved traveling and everything, and a lot of the people in the business loved seeing new things, seeing new places. Um, and especially when it came to moving the business further and expanding when we were moving up to Glasgow.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of people then completely jumped on that, especially me, because Glasgow's like my favorite city. I wasn't making that a secret.
Mhm.
And every time I was getting negged out on the field, they'd just throw Glasgow at me.
Mhm.
And it's like, just think, if you get the sales today, if you get promoted, you'll go to Glasgow and you'll get to live in your favorite city. Like, just trying to throw it at me as if it was like dangling a little carrot in front of my face.
Yep.
That's what it felt like.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think keeping us on the road, it was a weird one because a lot of us enjoyed it, so we wanted to be on road trips. But
Yep.
then, if we were on a road trip and we weren't making the amount of sales we should be on a road trip, then we'd get ridiculed for it.
Something I have to ask everyone is your owners, they're always supposed to present themselves as very wealthy, successful people. Did you get the impression that they were in fact making the money that they were supposed to be making?
Yes. In all honesty, I still to this day think that the CEO, well, the CEO, the owner of the office I was in, I do still believe that he was one of the lucky ones that was earning money.
Mhm.
Purely because I seen the lifestyle he was living, and because we were quite a close knit office, it was a bit of a weird one. Once we became part of the team, like the flat, the owner and a couple of the people that were like in like assistant ownership and
Mhm.
like campaign managers, they all lived together in one flat, and it was like a kind of communal area outside of work for us all to hang out. So um, but he was also one of the most successful ones in the country.
Mhm.
So, so I do think that he was one of the success stories, if you will. But I don't know if we have it different over here. But I didn't actually hear of any owners leaving. But I don't know whether they just managed to mask that really well.
Right. And you say, he was one of the most successful in the country. Is that like where is that information coming from? Is that from them telling you that, or from somewhere else?
Well, it's a bit of a funny one because obviously everyone in the office was like, "Matt's amazing, Matt's great," um, and then like when you had like the conference calls, we used to have them on a Thursday morning. Um, and they'd always bring up the scoreboard. We had like a scoreboard somewhere. I still don't know how to access it to this day. Of people that were like they had like the most successful owners. They had the distributors that were like making the most money, like the leaders that were making the most money.
Hmm.
Um, and our owner was always like up there.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a bit of like outsider and insider. I don't know how legit it is because I've never actually accessed it myself.
Yeah.
Um, but I know people that have accessed it, so it's a bit of a weird one.
But you said he was still living with a bunch of other people, though, right?
Yeah,
Oh man. It's almost like for every interview I do, there are certain things that I know are going to be said, and that is one of them. You can supposedly make six figures, but you have to live with four or five other people.
exactly.
Um, I was looking through some of the things you sent me and just kind of really quickly perusing through. And on one of the pages, it was an opportunity meeting, and on the bottom, you wrote the different levels of this business. And it just so happens to be a pyramid, like a clear pyramid. Was that ever something you thought about, or was that ever a topic of conversation in the office about how "Well, that's kind of interesting. This is shaped like a pyramid, kind of sounds like a pyramid operation." Did that ever come up?
Yeah, especially when we had that opportunity meeting and they like described it to us. I was like, okay, so obviously my family at this point were already against it. Like
Hmm.
I'd been told like this is a scam, and my mum in particular said, Molly, this is a pyramid scheme. It sounds like a pyramid scheme, and I'm just like, no, mum, it's not. It's amazing. I'm going to own my own office. Um, But the second they did that, I was like, oh my God, am I trapped in Avon or something?
Hmm.
That's literally the first thought I had. But
So
I was like,
you already
it's just
knew
a
of
different
Avon and
pyramid.
things like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the thoughts were there.
You're a fairly young individual, and that whole exchange between you and your support system, I've heard so many times. Is there anything in your mind for anybody watching this video who just happened to come across it? Is there anything that can be told to these young idealistic individuals like you were to get through to them about the scam that is these companies? Because in it, and I was in it too, I felt the same way, where this is amazing, everything's positive, this is different than any other place I've worked before, and then of course I'm going to get to run my own office. It sounds too good to be true, and if you're desperate, of course, not only are you working, but it sounds like this is the end, this is how I can finally make something of myself. Do you think there was anything that anyone could have told you to let you know, to change your mind, to basically snap you out of that, and to actually emphasize that this is such a scam?
In all honesty, no, because I had everything thrown at me. But I was like, I'm quite a headstrong person, so the second I've got something in my head, I will run with it.
Yeah.
But I know there's a few more people out there that are like a bit more, they'll listen more to outside factors. Sorry, and I think to those people, I'd just say, just go with your gut instinct, because no one goes into this business with a good feeling. Like they'll think, yeah, this is all happy. Like I'm just thinking negatively. I'm just
Yeah.
getting negged out. But it's you're feeling these feelings for a reason,
Yeah.
and just because honestly, it ruined my life for a good while. Like when I left, it completely dented my confidence. I went into a new job not long after, because I didn't really struggle to find a job afterwards. But I went into this new job with literally no money, so I couldn't afford to get there. My poor
Mhm.
granddad had to drive me like 40 minutes to work every day. Um, and like my nana had to buy me new clothes, and it was because I couldn't afford to live.
Mhm.
And I was still in my overdraft until about 3 months into working this job.
Mhm.
That, by the way, was a very well paid job. I was getting paid like close to £10 an hour, and I was still struggling until about, say, like at most the third month into me working there. And I was still constantly in my overdraft. So it's not like it just all ends when you leave.
Mhm.
And it really has a negative impact on your mentality as well. Because I just feel like I was so easily manipulated. But then when I found the documentary you did, I was like, oh my God, other people were manipulated too. I'm not alone. Because I just felt so stupid. I was like, I can't tell people I've done this because I'm just going to sound like an absolute idiot.
Mhm.
But it's like a massive thing. There's so many people that have fallen into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been almost 2 years since it came out, and I get messages every week from people that have gotten in and out since it's come out, and it's just, it's never ending. And I think a major part of it goes back to something you just talked about, how they can reframe everything as being, your negative thoughts as being just that, right? Even if you present them with the evidence of this is a pyramid scheme, which here in the US legally it's not, but that doesn't mean anything. This is a scam. They'll just be like, oh, that's just negative thinking. You're not looking at it from a positive way. You're negging out. It's amazing. You use the same phrase, negging out, that I heard for 15 months when I was in the business, that I've had other people tell me. It doesn't matter if it's in the UK, in the US, South Africa, I get a lot of messages from. South America, a lot of countries from there, I'm getting messages from. This scam, whatever name you want to call it, is all over the world. There are videos on YouTube from England, or I'm sorry, from India, from Asian countries. It's literally everywhere, and it's sad and it's pathetic that these companies advertise this marketing, this management training program. This, you can own your own business, when in fact the only people that are making money are the people that got in years ago and are willing to lose all their moral fiber or step on whoever they can to get ahead, betray anybody else. And I don't know. It's almost a helpless feeling because people like you and so many people I talk to, they're just looking for work, you know? They just want to do something and get out of being desperate. But then you have these companies like Smart Circle and Credico and Sidcore all doing the same thing, and they're all preying on these people. Um, I honestly hope that we can create more awareness about this so we can have a dent, which we've already had. I know that for a fact, but a larger dent in their operations.
I think it's just the main thing I wanted to say is just that I just hope that this kind of brings it more to like, a wider circle, knowing that it's because the first thing when I saw the documentary, I was just like, this can't be the same thing. This guy's from America. Like, there's no way this is the same thing. And then when you started using like the same terminology and like, I was like, wow, this is literally the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many other people from like the UK or like anywhere else in the world have seen that and just thought it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully this like will help them speak out. And, because I wasn't really in the company for that long.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was only there for like 10, 11 weeks. And I still had all this from that amount of time. But then I don't know the stories that people are going to say from people who've been there for years or like people that have, fallen from ownership and things like that. I think there are just so many more stories to tell, but people are just scared to tell them.
Yeah.
And I just hope that it means that people can start speaking out a bit more. But yeah, I think as well, I think the biggest thing about that business was just as well how like unprofessional it was when they keep using the professional thing against you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like on my first week there, I packed heels, like just little heels, but they were really hurting my feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I was off rotation and I went off to go phone somebody, and I'd taken my shoes off, just so I'd give my feet a rest. And then one of the leaders came up to me, and just like, look, I know your feet are hurting, but do you really think that when you start being a team leader that that's appropriate? And I'm like, I can do what I want. I'm apparently self-employed, so of
Right.
course I can do what I want. But as well, another thing that I was like talking to my nana earlier. So I've got this leadership guide, and this is how it came to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've not even stapled it right. It's literally fallen to bits. The pods we had two kinds of pods. So we also did trailers. We did trailers as well. But when we had the pods, they were either like a big plastic bin that we kept all of the merch in, and then we'd have to take the top off and, reach in for the merch and stuff. And then we'd wrap a ban around it. Or we had a little skeleton with shelves, and again, just wrap the ban around it. And there was this one room in the office, and I remember it. There was a piano in there, because why not? We always need a broken piano somewhere. And there was like loads of merch that had just been thrown in there, absolutely yeeted to the other side of the room. And it's like, it's all broken. There was some days we were like, it was Sundays, and like we'd go into the office, get stuff for road trips, and it'd all be broken. And it's like, we've got nothing that we can leave people, so they've actually got functioning merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
How anyone trusted us, I will never know. But yeah, I think it's just like these little red flags that people are seeing and just not saying anything, like listen and leave.
Yeah. The impression management of this business is so that even if you have the doubts, it's almost impossible to quantify them, because it could just be, oh, you're just thinking negative, or you're reading too much into it. But if you really look at it from the time you look at the job description, a lot of times you're not going to know what you're doing from reading the job description. There's going to be a lot of buzzwords like opportunity, self-starter, willing to go the extra mile, all this other stuff that means literally nothing. And then just it's all designed, like you mentioned. I don't know how anyone would trust us. Every word, every part of the script is designed to manipulate. So it can be really easy, even though you might have the shoddiest looking operation on the street. The words you use can manipulate enough to get people to donate, and that's exactly how these companies work. And I hadn't heard of the charity scam. I wasn't aware of it until I got a message from you, and I've since gotten a couple messages. So I don't know if this is, kind of relatively new, if people are just starting to figure out that it's the same thing since the film is going around. But Um, when I looked through the text that you sent me and I saw the word juice, there was like a big rah rah moment where four or five of you were saying juice. I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely the same thing. I don't know what branch it is. Now I know it's Credico, but it's all the same thing.